Hi everyone, it's Beth, and today I'm making a toolbox display. I used 2 of these cutting board signs from Dollar Tree, 4 of their pieces of chunky wood, they're 12 inches, some ticking fabric, a large dowel that I got from Walmart, a 11 by 14 frameless canvas, some twine, chalk paint in white and truffle, tacky glue, hot glue, and I ended up using 2 unfinished beads. First thing I did was remove the signs from the front of the cutting boards and peeled off as much of the paper as I could get off, and then took some damp paper towels and laid them over the cutting board signs and just let them sit there for about 10 minutes just to get that paper nice and wet to be able to be peeled off. After I let them sit for about 10 minutes, I started using my putty knife to get some of it off, but the sanding block actually works a lot quicker, so I ended up switching to that and just sanded off all that excess paper. And I do this 2 times to make sure to get everything off. Just put those same paper towels right back on there after you sand off the paper, and then let them sit for about 10 more minutes and sand the rest off. Let them dry and painted them with 2 coats of the white chalk paint. I painted the chunky wood, and I just did 1 coat of those because we'll be covering it in the fabric, but you could see some of that unfinished wood through the fabric because I chose a lighter color. So if you chose a darker color, you could skip that step. So what I did was put tacky glue on about half of the piece of wood, pressed down my fabric, and then just kept doing that until I had it completely wrapped. I cut these pieces of fabric about 12.5 inches by 5 inches. And I cut 4 of those pieces. Just did my tacky glue, brushed it all on there to cover the whole piece of wood, pressed down the fabric, and just kept doing that until it was completely wrapped. Once all the fabric was on there, I just trimmed up the edges and cut off the excess fabric from the sides. And I did not paint the ends of these pieces because you won't see them. They'll be glued to the sides of the cutting boards. And next, I like the rustic look, so I ended up distressing both of the cutting boards. If you don't like the rusted look, you could just leave them plain or choose a different color for the cutting board altogether. So I just took a dry brush and did the truffle chalk paint and just distressed both of those cutting boards. Once those were all done, I took one of my pieces of wood, put hot glue on the end, and hot glued it to one side of the cutting board, the very edge of it on the bottom. And just let that dry for a minute, and did the same thing to the next one, making sure that the seam of the fabric is on the inside, not the outside. And just held that there until it was nice and dry. Once those were dry on there, I just flipped it up to put my hot glue on both of the other unfinished ends. And then put it back down and put both of those pieces of wood on either end of the bottom of that cutting board. And just let that dry. And then I took my third piece of wood, again making sure that the seam is on the inside, and hot gluing that between both of the cutting boards, maybe about an inch or two above the bottom piece of wood. Just eyeballing it, seeing how I liked it. And then let that dry. And then took just my little crafter square and held it to kind of try to get the same measurement on the other side, and just marked where the top of it would need to be. Put glue on both ends of that piece and tuck that in there, getting it right below those lines I had made. And then I needed to make the base of the toolbox, so I took one of the frameless canvases from Dollar Tree. It's the 11 by 14 one. So I just put that under there, lining it up to make sure two of the ends lined up with the toolbox, and then marked off the other two ends with a pencil, and just took my blade and just scored it a bunch of times, and did that on both sides. And then after that, I just kind of bent it over, getting most of it off, and then took my blade again and just cut the rest of it off that needed to be cut. And then took my scissors and trimmed up any of the excess. If you don't want to use one of the frameless canvases, one of the Dollar Tree like rectangle signs might work. You just have to line it up and see if it would fit. So once I had that cut down to size, I just double checked, making sure it was the right fit, and then put hot glue on all of the edges of there. The shorter edges, I didn't put as much hot glue because the chalkboard side is really thin. So I just put a little bit on the shorter sides. And then just place the toolbox right on top of there, trying to get it lined up as best as possible, making sure all the ends were straight. And then I had also painted that dowel, which I had forgot to mention, and I just took some of the twine and wrapped it around a bunch of times to one end, hot gluing it to finish it off, and then cutting that excess. And then I took my unfinished wood bead and hot glued that to the end of that side. And then took the twine and wrapped it around the other end, doing the same thing, gluing it at the end. And I did not put the bead on that other side so I could get it through the holes. Once I had that part through, I put the hot glue on the other unfinished bead, put the dowel through the second hole on the cutting board, and hot glued that into place. And they were moving around a little more than I liked, so I put more twine between the bead and the outer edge of the cutting board just to make sure they stayed in place and didn't move around. And last thing I did was took the truffle chalk paint again and distressed that dowel for the handle and the inside of the box to make sure everything matched nicely. And that is it. I think it turned out super cute. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching.